I'm Eric Chemi, and this is Politely Pushy. Ryan, thanks so much for joining me on the podcast here. Vaultree, from what I understand, data in use encryption, right? That's been such a problem because we can store it encrypted, but if we want to use it, it's not encrypted. And so what are we supposed to do with this? You're claiming to be the first solution of that. But I look at your LinkedIn profile and it looks like you have more of a financial background as opposed to some hardcore techie background. So explain, how did you come up with this idea first, and then how did you decide I am the person in the whole world that is going to solve this problem?
All right. Okay. So firstly, I didn't decide to be that one person, but what I did, so yeah, absolutely. My background is a financial background, financial maths actually. So it's statistics, probabilities, a mix between maths and economics, and a little bit of computer science. And that's really how it started for me. Understanding then relationships, economics, and trying to understand how we behave, and putting an element of forecasting the future into that. But during that time, I personally have been affected. My data has been lost. I, as a student, lost my drinking money, basically, and had earned, right? And moving then...
You lost your data or you lost your money? What did you lose?
Both. Both. As a result of...
Talk about it.
Yeah, so as a result of me losing my data, also access then to my accounts and trading accounts as well. Interestingly enough, actually, one of my trading accounts, not going to mention the company here, but yep, I lost money on trades. Now, the money was not withdrawn because I would just go to the original source, which was my card, my bank. But yeah, they tampered with my trades. And yeah,
somebody hacked into your trading account and started trading in behalf of you, and then just had trades.
It was just a kobold basically that decided to play around, and so that happened, right? And yeah, so I've been receiving messages from DHL and UPS and every other organization out there, basically saying, "Hey, click on that link," and that really only happened after my data. Someone decided to hack into my accounts, basically. So yeah, I have lost data, even lost control of my email accounts, and that was really in college. So then I started really looking into it. Okay, what is the problem here, right, from a cybersecurity perspective? And that is where this journey really started. And in this journey, I have looked at encryption in more detail. So encryption technologies that we have right now that do exist, I started to play around with things, read research papers, and got really deep into it. And on the side, I had my day-to-day job, right? Because dreaming doesn't pay bills, and not at the beginning anyways, yeah. It will eventually, does eventually. Yeah, looked at that problem and realized we have a pretty big problem. And that problem is that data, all the data that is out there, is in plain text. Encryption at rest only really helps you if you break into a data center, and steal the actual hardware modules. So from that standpoint, you know, every single time we're working with data, which is all the time, meaning all the time, the data is in plain text. It's vulnerable, right? So if my data would have been encrypted to begin with back in the day, it would have meant nothing to them. But clearly that data was sitting around there in plain text. So anyways,
that's still happening today in a lot of places.
All the time, all the time. Most of the hacks, leaks, ransomware attacks are in plain text.
There's nothing I can do about it too, right? Like as a consumer, as a user, my data is out of my control, and they're the ones putting it in plain text, right? What am I supposed to do about it?
There's nothing you can do about it, but also the organizations can't do anything about it, right? They have to work with the data. They have to provide a service to you. They have to analyze the data. They have to improve their services. They have to draw value from the data that they have. And really, I mean, especially over the last 10, 15 years, more and more organizations have been more inhibited and not only attacked a lot more from that standpoint, but vulnerable like never been before, because you have technology that is advancing, the competence of economies, different verticals in the technology space. And but when we're looking at really what protects all of that, that space has been, especially from an encryption standpoint, not really moved forward a lot, right? In certain areas it has, in a lot of areas, and especially in the area of your data still just sitting and lying around in plain text, has not been really progressing a lot. There have been a few attempts, and there have been certain workaround solutions to try and tackle that problem. But fundamentally, when we are talking about data in plain text, and data in plain text as it is right now, reading, being able to use and read, let's say, your name, and just looking at it and using it, that shouldn't be the case. You shouldn't have access and be able to see and have that your name, first of all, is lying around in some database and in plain text.
How do you solve that though? Because I think about from, let's say, a normal person's point of view, you can understand, hey, the data analyst has their job. They need to go through all this data. They're looking at it. They have to be able to see it, right? It has to be visually available to them. So how if it is not in plain text, how are they supposed to work with that?
Oh, that's very easy, right? I mean, first of all, when you're writing, let's say, any kind of query, right? You're writing a query saying, okay, I'm looking for a range of people between the age of 20 to 45 that are of that gender, that are earning between, let's say, $50,000 and $150,000, live in that geography, and are buying lemonade every week, basically, right? You write that query. Right now, what is happening, you write that query in plain text. And that query has to be processed over some data set, right? That data set has to be decrypted from encryption at rest to be in plain text. And then in this case, that query then would be processed over that plain text data set to get you that result. Now, with data in use encryption in this case, the query is encrypted, the data set is randomized encrypted, and returns then encrypted response. So at no point actually there is any plain text, and data is processed in its fully encrypted form with simplicity. So it sounds like magic, right? Especially when you have queries, you're writing encrypted queries, randomized encrypted queries that are processed over randomized encrypted data to return a randomized encrypted responses, and are only decrypted client side, app side. Yeah, it sounds like magic to many, but there is a lot of maths and a lot of revolutionary IP behind it. But yeah.
Where do you see the future of encryption headed in the broader cybersecurity space?
So where I see it heading, especially with foundational technologies that are being developed, such as data and use encryption in this case, fully functional data and use encryption, meaning you can do anything with encrypted data as you would with plain text data. That is going to set us up to really enable an encrypted future, right? How you work with data in its encrypted form, draw value out of data that you couldn't do before. And I'm going to go even steps way beyond, where you can now train machine learning algorithms over encrypted data in real time to give you an idea. And everyone was falling off the chairs, more or less. We showed actually involved natural language processing capabilities, utilizing and doing so over encrypted data without decrypting that data. Now, You're
It
talking
sounds like
about
magic. Like you said, it sounds like magic.
exactly. Now we are going all the way to our capability actually supporting the likes of an encrypted ChatGPT, basically. Data is never decrypted. And additionally to that, you can now embed access controls and from a key management perspective as well to ensure that who actually has what control and what access from what perspective here. But really where the future is heading to right now and what we are seeing is if you can do that with data, you don't have an excuse anymore to keep your data in plain text sitting around anywhere. And if something happens and you didn't use a foundational technology that keeps it encrypted, that's your own fault because you're going to have a leak. It's going to happen earlier or later, question not of if, but when. And but if you use such a technology and you have an encrypted leak, it's a whole different conversation you're going to have. So the future is encrypted. But there's a second part to this, education. Because
Education, you're saying.
yes,
Who needs
absolutely.
to be educated?
Oh, a lot of people, but all the way from the you can go all the way from politics to scientists. To give you an idea, I mean, I'm talking to some scientists, and they are saying this is not possible. This can't be done, basically, right? But they are still stuck in an era of the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, basically. And then from a politician standpoint, it's pretty scary to someone who doesn't understand really encryption. And then we have all the bad actors, right, that are using encrypted networks to their advantage. But and then we are trying to get laws put in place, like for example in the UK, where the boss of Signal was saying the CEO, "Hey, like if you guys put this through, then we're gonna leave the UK." But so from a politics standpoint, actually, for politicians to understand that encryption is a good thing, they have revolutionary breakthroughs in that space that can actually enable and help them to actually create potential opportunities for law enforcement to collaborate cross-border that you couldn't do beforehand, all the way to scientists to your average Joe consumers. So, like myself, and therefore, I think it's a broad range because when we're hearing encryption, everyone runs the other mouth.
Right, right. Why, or let me put it this way, what are the excuses that you're hearing from people that aren't making the switch? You mentioned some politics, regulatory, but when they say, "Oh no, I got to leave it in plain text," what's the challenge? I'm not going to go fully encrypted because X. What are they saying?
They didn't know this was possible.
Okay. So when
Like,
they hear it's possible, when you say, "Hey, it's possible," and we're selling that solution, pay me money to do it, then what do they say?
um, first they're looking at you like you have three heads, right? And you're from another planet, and this is again another roadshow. Then you're showing a demo, it actually happening live on a screen and working through it with them. Then they understanding the capability. Then you get to the side of philosophy, right, of how we are working with encrypted data to, okay, now how can I implement this? And but what is my use case within the organization? And then us saying, well, what is your pain point and how can we help with your pain points and your problems within the organizations? It's something so new, right? That understanding now for a lot of organizations and individuals, they are only realizing, wow, okay, now my data is always encrypted. Now I can go back to the business and say and propose things I never could propose beforehand, right? And they first have to think about that a lot of the times. And very quickly you get ones that really understand, oh, wow, this is doing what? And we get right to the next phase of diving deeper into it. And some of the largest banks in the world actually working with us on implementing this to saying, okay, the whole other side of your average retail space, which is holding a lot of data as well, saying, holy smokes, okay, this is going to enable us to do certain analytics over consumers without exposing the sensitive information of consumers, protecting them, but also for the marketing and the sales teams and the actual analytics teams of the retail sector to be able to more efficiently map out how we are going to target consumers and what they want, what they don't want, how we're going to adjust production lines, and so on. So it does impact a whole business, right? And that education element to the earlier question, it's all part really again, about educating the right audience. But we see that certain economies, certain industry sectors are quicker at adopting cutting edge technologies, and
Who would you
others have
say? Who would you say that's on the edge? Who would you say that's on the edge, and who's at the bottom of the race there?
I would say North America, without doubt, is at the forefront, right? North America, CISOs, CTOs, technology departments of companies in the US and Canada very often, they are very open to looking at new technologies and can advance them, can help them. The total polar opposite, surprisingly, actually is the likes of Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, right? Which
Why? Why do you think that is?
it's just I have a German passport as well, right? So
So
I
be
can say
careful
this.
what you say.
Exactly. But in relation to technologies, and this is just what I think personally, right? My opinion. Well, Germans always have been amazing at engineering, mechanical engineering. My dad studied mechanical engineering, and my uncles too. But so they're brilliant at that, right? Building cars. But anything they can't see as such, not hold in their hand, they seem to be sort of a bit scared
That's what
about
got me. That what
adopting
got
that.
me originally, right? Like if I can't see the data,
Yeah,
well, what am I supposed to do with it, right? I can run these
yeah,
queries, but if it's all encrypted, I can't see it. I can't feel it. I can
yeah.
see how that's a real big, sort of a dynamic shift that people are wary of.
Yeah. So, like, I mean, I give you a really simple, a funny example, actually. In Germany and in many places, you go to a shop and you're trying to pay with your Visa card, right? Visa debit card, and they're classing it as a credit card. And they require you to have a €5 minimum spend limit or €10 minimum spend limit, and they're not accepting credit cards. And I have to try and convince them that it's a debit card. So they prefer to, have me paying cash. You still have that happening in Germany. Whilst you go to, for example, let's say, parts of Africa, you can pay with your phone, literally. Or microfinance. You can go around and pay with your watch. You can with your SIM card. So, I would say parts of Asia and North America are absolutely at the forefront, and the UK as well. I would say the UK as well.
What are some fads right now, or sort of overrated things? Right, you're talking to companies that are looking to beef out some of their cybersecurity, their data
Mm.
encryption, like you mentioned. What are you advising them on when you say, "Hey, I know you want to spend on X, but that's a waste of money, and it's not going to get you where you think you need to be"?
In the space, in the encryption space, you mean?
Yeah,
Confidential computing.
talk about that.
Yeah.
Talk about it for
So
most people, because I don't think most people know what that is. So just briefly, what is that, and why would you say don't spend money on that?
So I can go in quite some detail here, but to keep it very high level here, right? Firstly,
Confidential computing, right? Just so people know the phrase in case they haven't heard it before.
yeah, absolutely. So being able to, in a segregated manner, being able to compute large amounts of data, basically, but it doesn't allow you from that standpoint to actually run certain kind of queries. So it is fairly expensive. It's heavy to integrate. It's not scalable. And in ways, you are still decrypting your data, even though it is, let's say, within split seconds, but still those split seconds can count. Additionally to that, it's extremely resource intensive and can be extremely expensive. Yeah. So it's not solving the actual underlying problem, which is more of a mathematical problem. So, and then you have to also venture down the route of hardware, right? And many other elements here when you're relating it to confidential computing. But I would say, and there's a second one that I will get to in a second, but we had a lot of organizations that came to us, large companies, and they said, okay, we want to move away from confidential computing. We tried it out. It's not really working for us. And how can you help us? The thing is, you go to the, and you see this actually at the RSA. At the RSA, you see 1 year, now this year it was AI, and last year it was XDR. But basically, you see at the conference everywhere XDR, or AI. It was AI basically this year. But what I recommend individuals is first to educate yourself about the background. What is your use case? What are your problems? And what are you trying to solve? And what solution can actually fundamentally solve that? Now, a lot of workaround solutions, and confidential computing is not the first one, is actually, in fact, like when we talk about synthetic data, tokenization, anonymization, meshing, we are talking about clusters, workaround solutions, right? Some of them can help for certain use cases, but actually, in fact, I tell you this, every single organization we have spoken to that has implemented either one of those workaround solutions is actually looking at moving away from them fast, because it doesn't really help them really as such, only temporarily for a specific use case they have, but not for what they are looking at doing into the future, how they can utilize that data. Now, it does absolutely help, right, with a certain use case to ensure that if, let's say, a bad actor in this case gets access to a certain amount of information in a certain environment at a certain time, then yes, it can help for a specific use case, but it's not scalable. And that is a problem. Plus, it's expensive. It inhibits a business instead of enabling a business. Yeah.
All of the increase in cybercrime, data breaches, like we all see that, right? Everybody knows that, whether they're technical or not. How does that affect your business prospects? Is it like people just get so used to it that they think, hey, it's not that big of a deal, or is it actually an impetus to, oh, I better make sure this doesn't happen to my company, so I need to make sure that I sign up with you? Does it actually spur new business prospects to come to you?
Absolutely, it does happen quite a bit that we had few customers come to us after they actually have been breached. A lot of them have been at one point breached just due to the size of organizations that really are coming to us. And I would say that a lot of organizations that have not experienced it are fairly, or I would say laissez-faire is maybe the wrong word here, but they have not experienced the pain yet of actually going through the process of what it means to be breached, and having to have a whole process embedded, spending millions, and then also being at risk of paying millions, double-digit millions in fines. Or triple digits, really depending on the size of the organization. But I think that it absolutely does impact organizations fast in looking at solutions like data and use encryption. Yeah.
You recently announced $13 million Series A funding round. So talk to us about that experience, building a strategy around that, right? That would be the dream for so many startup entrepreneurs out there, to even just get, what is that, an 8-figure number, right? A Series A 8-figure number. That's a big success. If nothing else happens, you at least did that, right? Talk about what that process was. What did you learn along the way, and some advice for people who are going through it themselves?
It's not easy, absolutely not. And especially for us, it was quite a tough one because we did it during a time when basically left, right, and center all around us, businesses, startups were just disappearing.
Even though your idea is so compelling and so important, you still struggled with what was the obstacle? Was it just, hey, we think your idea is great, but we just don't have any money to give out, or
I wouldn't say we struggled, right? We had a lot of interest. We were completely oversubscribed, right?
Okay.
I actually had trouble in negotiating some investors either out of the round or down in terms of commitment.
Okay.
So we didn't really have a problem raising money as such.
Okay.
But still, from a due diligence standpoint and finding the right partner, having the right conversation, that was a bit more challenging than literally 6 months beforehand, because a lot of those investors didn't just invest in cybersecurity, cutting edge solutions. They also invested in other businesses that unfortunately went down the drain. So, of course, they had this shield up, right? And conversations took a bit longer, but usually it was them coming to us. And I would say 60% was a lot of investors heard about us and what what we were doing, what we were up to, and what we actually solved. And my inbox literally just exploded, and I ended up literally having a template that I had to get set up just to filter out the first few investors. But in terms of what I would say to everyone here is to stay strong in this time. Have the right message, have from how to explain your idea to where you are at and what you have achieved. A 30-second pitch, a 5-minute pitch, a 10-minute pitch, a 30-minute pitch, right? Elevator pitch, if you meet someone, be able to convey that message in a very concise form, what you're doing, how you're doing it.
What's your elevator pitch?
Yeah.
Tell us, what was your elevator pitch?
Oh, Jesus. What was it back then? Yeah, we are doing, so give me a minute here, yeah?
Elevator ride's over.
Yeah. Fully functional data and user encryption, allowing organizations to process fully randomized encrypted data without ever decrypting that data again. That was it.
That's good. That's good.
That was it. And then the question was like, what? Can you repeat that?
Right.
And yeah.
So then you got through the raise, you got through that challenge, and it's all done, oversubscribed, everything great. Now, what are you going to do with that? A lot of momentum you've had in a short period of time. What are the next big milestones, right? Like, let's say we sit down a year from now. What will you have wanted to achieve in that next 12 months?
The next 12 months from now?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So get the technology out to customers, right? Fast. Help organizations mitigate the significant risks that they actually right now are exposed to. In terms of how we're going to scale now, we are significantly scaling. So our customer support, technical engineering support, those teams are growing at a tremendous rate now. But bringing that technology to organizations fast so that they actually can enable their organization from a data and use encryption standpoint, data value perspective, but also from a compliance perspective. Compliance is, as time goes by, and in other words, catching up with technology, it will become more difficult for organizations to really thrive alongside compliance. So that is one thing that we absolutely can help with. But bring the technology out to organizations and enable data privacy, which really is a human right. And that is absolutely fundamentally what we believe in. but also in enabling value in data for organizations. And we can do that, enable that anyways for organizations. So growing we're going to be growing quite fast. And we are tackling specific verticals and industry sectors that is going to scale out further. And yeah, that's it. That's our focus. Our focus is really product and customers, and really getting that out. Have a lot of learning that is going to come back our way in this journey. But that's fundamentally it.
Real
If I
quick,
bring it to the foundation.
I would have ended it, but you said a couple things that I just want to get to. You're focused on a few verticals and industries. Can you just name what those are and the reason why you're focused on those? That's question one, and then I'll save question two.
Yeah, sure. So the first ones really are healthcare sector, telco, and financial services sector. They have, first of all, a mass amount of data. I mean, if you the kind of sensitive information that these verticals are processing, and within those verticals, you have a lot of different sectors. So you're talking here about a lot of different organizations and tranches of organizations. And the reason we are tackling, like I said, is just the data, the amount of sensitive data that they are processing, working with, and they need that. They need that technology fast. Every week we're hearing about another hospital chain, another biotech company, another pharma company, another fintech company, bank having a leak, being exposed. That can stop from a standpoint of in plain text.
And then you mentioned data privacy now considered more of a human right across the globe. What do you think is going to change in terms of, and maybe it's too broad of a question, but like, what do you see over the next year? Will there be more rules around it? Will that change how your business approaches this? Because we're starting to see, major political bodies, right? Countries and EU bodies and all that. Data is a personal human right, and it changes how companies can deal with it.
Yeah. So I've said for the last 10 years, and I think I don't know if that was mentioned before, and I thought I actually came up with it, data privacy being a human right. I'm sure it has been out there a long time before me, but really, if you think about it like that, right? Before we had access to data like we have today, you kept your most precious personal information at home in a safe, right? And you were the only one that had access to it. Birth certificates for children, all the way to your passport, to credit card, bonds that you had, all kinds of deeds, and so on. All that kind of information you kept on paper in a safe at home, right, or in a bank. Today, someone just walks up to your house, just the door is wide open, that person walks through the door, up to that safe is wide open, and those papers are just lying there. The individual takes them and just walks out. That is literally the case today. But every one of us has a right to privacy, and data equals you. Data equals every single individual, from genomics data to how much you're making, to your date of birth, whatever it is that makes you, right? That's you personal data, and that is a right that you have to keep private, right? That is your own personal life. It's the same what you believe in, your political status. It's exactly the same, right? Religious status, like it's you, right? And you have a right to protect that. And right now, that right does not exist by default because data is in plain text.
Right.
So really, everyone should respect that right. And yeah.
Makes sense. There's going to be a lot is going to change over these next few years. And Ryan, appreciate the time. Excited for what you're doing. The fact that so many people didn't even know this was possible, and you're proving that it is.
Yeah.
I think the next generation is going to have a very different relationship with data. Like you said, you go back a generation, they needed to see it or they couldn't understand it, right? And you're shifting that battle here. And I think we're going to go into a world where by default, we're not going to see anything, right? When everything's done properly, everything is safe and secure and you can keep it secret. And maybe...
and you're the only one that has the keys to to unencrypt that data, basically. Yeah.
And maybe one day data breaches will disappear, right? If everything's encrypted, maybe we can solve that problem, but I don't know if that's happening.
I don't know if they're gonna disappear, but I think they individuals just couldn't be bothered anymore to try and get into your environment to get that data, because they know it's gonna be useless, right? So I think it's gonna be more a reason of laziness, understanding and realizing it's worthless to them. If you have Vaultree to your data, for example.
Right. Amazing. Ryan, fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you to my guest, and thanks for listening. Subscribe to get the latest episodes each week, and we'll see you next time.